Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where we uncover the extraordinary and the unexpected in humanity's journey through the cosmos. Prepare for a story of resilience, survival, and the unique quirks that make humans stand out in a galaxy full of mysteries. Let's dive in. They thought we were fragile, primitive, nothing more than soft-fleshed creatures scraping by on the edge of survival. But when they saw what humans were capable of consuming, their assumptions about us, about everything, shattered like glass under pressure. Humanity's entry into the galactic community wasn't a moment of grand celebration or dramatic conquest. Instead, it was met with cautious skepticism. The coalition of higher species, a council of powerful and advanced civilizations spanning the galaxy, had long believed they had seen it all. For millennia, they had encountered species with biological traits so extraordinary they could be mistaken for myths. The Thriacs, with their nearly impenetrable chitin exoskeletons, the Zayari, who could photosynthesize light into pure energy, and the Krallans, who could regrow entire limbs within days. Then came humanity. On paper, we were unimpressive. Our flesh was soft and easily pierced, our bones breakable, and our bodies susceptible to injury and disease. To the coalition, humans seemed like fragile beings, teetering on the edge of survival. The only thing that hinted at potential was our technology, which, while primitive by galactic standards, demonstrated a surprising level of ingenuity. As Earth petitioned for entry into the coalition, the curiosity surrounding humanity grew. What made these fragile creatures capable of reaching the stars? Coalition scientists combed through mountains of data about our biology, culture, and history. While they found some points of interest, our rapid innovation, adaptability to harsh climates, and sheer tenacity, their focus soon narrowed to one truly perplexing aspect of humanity: our diet. Most species within the coalition thrived on efficient, standardized food sources. For the Thriacs, nutrient-dense synth paste kept their energy levels stable. The Zayari lived symbiotically with light, absorbing all the sustenance they needed from their twin suns. Even carnivorous species like the Rheacon consumed highly processed, pre-packaged protein blocks to minimize risk and waste. Eating was seen as a necessary, calculated act of survival. There was no room for unnecessary complexity or risk. Humans, however, defied this logic. The variety in our diet was staggering. The records showed we consumed everything from raw fish to aged, fermented milk products. We sought out flavors that burned, stung, and numbed our tongues. Spices, acids, bitter compounds. Substances other species instinctively avoided were staples in human cuisine. This omnivorous adaptability baffled coalition scientists. How could a species survive when they willingly ingested things most creatures would classify as toxic? The coalition's first encounter with human food came during the application process. To demonstrate cultural diversity, Earth's representatives presented a catalog of traditional dishes. The reaction was immediate and visceral. The sight of fermented cabbage bubbling with live bacteria horrified the Thriacs. The Zayari recoiled from the pungent scent of blue cheese, calling it a chemical attack. And then there were peppers, brimming with capsaicin, a compound designed by plants to repel predators but embraced by humans as a source of pleasure. The coalition's xenobiologist couldn't comprehend it. They labeled our diet as chaotic, reckless, and, in one notable case, borderline suicidal. For them, the concept of eating was tied to control and precision, not the celebration of diversity, flavor, and even risk. Humans were an enigma, a species that had not only survived but thrived, eating things that no rational creature would ever consider food. Joining the coalition of higher species was not a simple matter of diplomacy or technological readiness. Every prospective member was required to undergo a rigorous evaluation process to prove they met the coalition standards for stability, sustainability, and compatibility. Among the various trials, one stood out as a seemingly straightforward yet critical test: the dietary assessment. It was designed to ensure that a species' food consumption was safe, efficient, and sustainable. For thousands of years, no species had ever failed this test. When humanity's turn came, confidence was high. Earth's representatives believed the test would be a formality, a simple box to check on their way to full membership. After all, humans had been feeding themselves for millennia, surviving on nearly every corner of a hostile planet. What they didn't expect was the sheer shock and horror their diet would provoke among the coalition evaluators. The first step of the assessment was to present samples of Earth's staple foods. The coalition's xenobiologists, experts from a dozen advanced species, gathered in a sterile observation chamber as the human delegation unveiled a wide variety of culinary items. At first, there was cautious interest. The scientists examined grains like wheat and rice, fruits like apples and bananas, and vegetables like carrots and potatoes. These items were deemed acceptable, albeit slightly primitive compared to the nutrient-dense synth foods most coalition species relied on. But then came the second wave of samples, foods that showcased the true breadth of human cuisine. The moment fermented dishes were introduced, the atmosphere in the observation chamber shifted. Sauerkraut and kimchi, teeming with live bacterial cultures, were presented as vital elements of human diets. The Thriax delegation, who relied on sterile paste for sustenance, immediately raised alarms about biological contamination. A tip of alliance, let's turn to biological to tell the rest of the world that, unlike the rest of the world. Next came dairy products, cheeses aged until they were streaked with mold, yogurts brimming with living microorganisms, and milk from multiple species of livestock. The Craolons, who viewed the idea of consuming another creature's byproducts as a taboo, recoiled in disgust. One scientist reportedly muttered that humans must have a death wish. Then came the spicy foods. Peppers, infused with capsaicin, were introduced as a common seasoning in many human dishes. Coalition scientists were baffled. Capsaicin was a chemical designed by plants to repel predators by causing pain, and yet humans had not only embraced it but cultivated plants to increase its potency. The evaluators classified it as a defensive compound and demanded to know why humans consumed something that caused such discomfort. But the real tipping point came when the human delegation presented examples of what they called luxury foods. Fugu, a dish prepared from a highly toxic pufferfish, was introduced as a delicacy that required expert preparation to avoid death. Live oysters were served raw, their texture and taste described as an acquired pleasure. Then there was the durian fruit, whose smell was so potent that the coalition scientists insisted it be removed from the chamber entirely. The coalition's reaction was unanimous and immediate. They labeled human food as chaotic, volatile, and dangerous. For them, eating was meant to be predictable and safe, but for humans it was an act of exploration, celebration, and sometimes outright defiance of nature. The evaluators began to suspect that humanity's approach to food might hint at something far more profound about their resilience. Yet for now they were simply appalled. When the initial evaluation ended, the coalition's findings were damning. They declared humanity's diet to be unprecedented in its recklessness and issued a statement suggesting that Earth's representatives reconsider their culinary traditions before proceeding further. But what they didn't understand was that human adaptability and ingenuity were deeply tied to the very chaos they feared. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving because of their willingness to embrace what others avoided. The trial of proving was only beginning, and the coalition would soon learn that humanity's relationship with food was far more than an anomaly. It was a testament to their unique place in the galaxy. After the coalition's initial shock over humanity's diet, Earth's representatives decided to shift tactics. They believed that demonstrating the cultural significance and communal nature of human food could help the coalition understand that eating was more than just survival for humans. It was a cornerstone of identity, tradition, and even joy. To do this, they organized what they called a Feast of Earth's Finest, inviting the coalition evaluators to witness the full spectrum of human culinary achievement. The coalition, still skeptical but curious, accepted the invitation. The feast was arranged in a sprawling observation hall aboard a neutral station orbiting a barren moon. The setting was designed to accommodate the sensitivities of every species present: filtered air for the Thriacs, muted lighting for the Zayari, and separate chambers for the sense-sensitive Kralons. The humans, however, took no such precautions for themselves, standing boldly among the evaluators as the event began. The first course was meant to ease the guests into humanity's culinary world. Simple dishes like fresh fruits, leafy greens, and roasted vegetables were displayed on long, ornate tables. The coalition scientists examined the offerings with careful scanners, noting the lack of processing or sterilization. Still, this course was mild enough to avoid outright rejection. But then the second course arrived, and the atmosphere shifted. Fermented dishes were introduced as part of humanity's ancient culinary traditions. Sauerkraut, kimchi, and miso soup filled the air with pungent aromas. The Thriacs delegation, who viewed bacterial fermentation as a dangerous act of biological contamination, visibly stiffened. The Kralons, who processed all food into nutrient blocks to avoid microbial exposure, refused to step closer. The humans explained that these foods were alive in more ways than one, teeming with beneficial bacteria that supported digestion and health. This revelation horrified the evaluators, who could not fathom willingly consuming contaminated sustenance. Next came the spicy dishes, an entire array of foods showcasing the human love for heat and pain. Bright red curries, hot sauces, and flame-grilled peppers were presented with pride. Coalition biologists quickly scanned the items, detecting capsaicin in alarming concentrations. For most species, this chemical was a dangerous irritant, meant to repel predators. Yet here were humans, smiling as they described the delightful burn of spicy food. The Thriacs muttered in their native tongue, wondering aloud if humans had malfunctioning pain receptors. The fourth course was the moment that solidified the feast as an unthinkable spectacle. Raw foods were brought out: sashimi, oysters, and ceviche, all served without the sterilization or preparation the coalition deemed essential. The sight of humans consuming uncooked, untreated foods sent ripples of unease through the alien crowd. But the final course truly pushed the coalition to its limits. Desserts were presented as culinary art: molten chocolate cakes, flambéed fruits, and even alcoholic drinks brewed from fermented grains. One particular dessert, bananas Foster, was served aflame, the alcohol ignited to create a spectacle of fire and sweetness. For the coalition, fire was a dangerous element never to be toyed with, and they watched in stunned silence as humans casually extinguished the flames and consumed the dish. The most polarizing item, however, was the durian, a fruit that humans described as an acquired taste. Its smell permeated the hall like a wave, a combination of sweetness and rot. Several delegates left the room immediately, clutching their sensory organs, while others stayed only out of morbid curiosity. The humans explained that, despite its pungent odor, the fruit's creamy, sweet interior was considered a delicacy in certain cultures. This explanation did little to calm the evaluators, who labeled it an olfactory assault. By the end of the feast, the coalition representatives were reeling. They couldn't decide if humans were daring pioneers of biology or reckless creatures with no sense of self-preservation. To them, every bite the humans took seemed like a gamble with death, yet the humans were not only unharmed, they seemed to revel in the experience. The feast had proven one undeniable fact: human resilience wasn't just physical, it was cultural. Where other species saw danger, humans saw opportunity. Where others recoiled in fear, humans leaned in with curiosity. The coalition began to understand that humanity's approach to food wasn't madness. It was a reflection of their broader approach to life, a willingness to face the unknown and turn it into something extraordinary. For the coalition, this was a revelation. For the humans, it was just dinner. The coalition's fascination with humanity deepened after the Feast of the Unthinkable. While most of the delegates were still horrified by what they had witnessed, their curiosity was undeniable. How could humans consume such a vast array of substances, many of which were classified as toxic by other species, and not only survive but thrive? The coalition's leading xenobiologists launched an extensive investigation into human biology, determined to uncover the secret behind their seemingly reckless dietary habits. Their findings would shake their understanding of biological resilience. The first revelation came from studying the human digestive system. The coalition scientists, accustomed to the sterile, simplified systems of their own species, were stunned by the complexity of human gastrointestinal biology. Unlike most species in the coalition, whose digestive tracts relied on mechanical processing or enzymatic simplicity, humans hosted a diverse and active microbiome and ecosystem of trillions of microorganisms living within their bodies. These microbes, they discovered, were not passive passengers but active partners. They broke down tough plant fibers, neutralized harmful compounds, and even produced vitamins essential to human health. The coalition had never encountered a species that coexisted so harmoniously with what they saw as potential contaminants. Where other species sterilized their food to eliminate any biological risk, humans had evolved to embrace these risks, turning them into advantages. But the microbiome was only part of the story. The human liver emerged as another marvel of evolutionary adaptation. This organ, larger and more complex than those of most other species, acted as a biochemical defense system. It processed toxins, converting them into harmless compounds that could be safely excreted. Substances that would cause irreversible damage in other species, alcohol, mild neurotoxins, even certain heavy metals, were broken down with remarkable efficiency in humans. The coalition scientists coined a term for this phenomenon: dynamic adaptability. Humans were not biologically rigid like many coalition species, whose diets were limited to carefully engineered nutrient sources. Instead, they were designed to adapt to a constantly changing environment. This adaptability was a relic of their evolutionary history, a history that had forced them to survive in a world filled with threats, from poisonous plants to predatory animals. Further research revealed another surprising trait. Humans didn't just survive environmental hazards, they sought them out. Spicy foods, for example, baffled the coalition. The capsaicin in peppers activated pain receptors, causing a burning sensation. In most species, this would trigger an aversion response, yet humans not only tolerated it, but seemed to enjoy the experience. The scientists discovered that capsaicin consumption triggered the release of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, creating a sense of euphoria. Humans, it seemed, had learned to turn pain into pleasure. The coalition also analyzed the human immune system and found it unusually robust. Unlike many other species, humans were constantly exposed to pathogens through their food, environment, and physical interactions. This exposure had hardened their immune defenses, creating a system that could adapt quickly to new threats. Where other species sought to eliminate every potential risk, humans lived alongside danger, evolving with it. The final piece of the puzzle came from studying human psychology. Eating, for humans, was not just a biological necessity. It was a social and cultural act. Humans didn't merely consume food for sustenance, they celebrated it, experimented with it, and transformed it into art. This approach wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving in the face of adversity. The coalition realized that this mindset extended far beyond food. It was central to humanity's existence. For the coalition, this was a paradigm shift. For centuries, they had equated survival with control, sterilizing food, perfecting diets, and eliminating variables. Humans, by contrast, thrived by embracing the unpredictable. They didn't see risk as something to be feared, but as a challenge to overcome. Their ability to consume what others would avoid wasn't recklessness, it was adaptability in its purest form. In humanity, the coalition saw a species that turned danger into strength, chaos into resilience, and necessity into creativity. What they had initially dismissed as weakness was revealed to be one of the greatest biological and cultural advantages they had ever encountered. The secret of human survival wasn't a single trait or organ, it was a combination of biology, history, and an indomitable spirit that refused to be constrained by fear. Humanity wasn't fragile after all. They were something entirely new, a species that thrived on the unthinkable. The experiment was simple in concept but daunting in execution. Coalition participants would consume carefully selected human foods to observe how their bodies reacted. Each species was paired with a team of medical personnel to monitor their physiological responses and ensure no lasting harm would come to them. The humans, amused by the coalition's cautious approach, provided an array of dishes, ranging from mild and familiar to bizarre and borderline dangerous by galactic standards. The first phase focused on safe foods. Bread, a staple of human diets, was introduced as the opening item. To the coalition's relief, most participants tolerated it well. The Thriacs, however, struggled with the gluten proteins, which caused minor allergic reactions. Rice and fruit fared better, and some species even expressed mild interest in the taste. This initial success emboldened the coalition, though it gave them a false sense of confidence about what was to come. The second phase introduced fermented foods. Kimchi, sauerkraut, and yogurt were placed on the menu. This was where the experiment began to unravel. The Thriacs volunteers, already uneasy about bacteria-laden food, outright refused to participate. The Zyari cautiously sampled yogurt but experienced sensory overload from its tangy flavor, which their kind perceived as a form of chemical aggression. The Krallans, who had never ingested anything remotely alive, were horrified by the concept of intentionally consuming active cultures and withdrew from this part of the trial. The third phase brought spice into the equation. Hot sauce and spicy curries were offered to participants who volunteered to try. The results were immediate and dramatic. The Raigan, a carnivorous species with a robust digestive system, boldly consumed a spoonful of chili-infused sauce. Within seconds, their sensory organs flared in protest, and they described the sensation as liquid fire invading every nerve. They refused to continue, declaring humans to be insane for weaponizing food. A Zyari participant took a sip of water tainted with a single drop of hot sauce, only to collapse into convulsions as their light-sensitive biology interpreted the capsaicin as a chemical attack. Emergency medical intervention was required. Humans who ate peppers for pleasure seemed to defy all logic. The final phase was the most controversial, the introduction of foods considered extreme delicacies. Fugu, the toxic pufferfish dish, was presented alongside raw oysters and durian fruit. The coalition volunteers reacted with shock. The idea that humans would intentionally consume a dish that required precise preparation to avoid death was incomprehensible. One participant described it as suicidal arrogance disguised as culture. Raw oysters, still alive as they were consumed, triggered revulsion among every species. The durian, with its overwhelming odor, was universally rejected as unfit for any living creature. The aftermath of the experiment left the coalition in disarray. Most participants reported intense physical and psychological distress. Some required weeks to recover from exposure to substances that humans consume daily without issue. The data collected was invaluable but raised more questions than it answered. How could humans not only survive but enjoy consuming substances that pushed other species to their limits? The answer, the coalition concluded, lay not just in human biology but in their mindset. Humans approached food and life itself with a willingness to explore, adapt, and push boundaries. Where other species avoided discomfort, humans embraced it, finding joy and meaning in the challenge. The experiment had one undeniable result. The coalition now understood that humanity's strength wasn't just in their ability to endure. It was in their refusal to accept limitations, even those imposed by nature itself. The humans were proving to be far more formidable than anyone had anticipated. The experiment had shaken the coalition to its core. What they had initially dismissed as reckless indulgence was now viewed as something far more profound, a demonstration of resilience so deeply ingrained in humanity's existence that it bordered on incomprehensible. The Coalition Scientific Council convened to discuss the implications of the findings, and for the first time in centuries, the evaluators were deeply divided. Many species within the coalition had long prided themselves on their mastery over nature. They had sterilized their food, engineered perfect environments, and eliminated unpredictability from their lives. To them, survival meant control, avoiding risks at all costs. But humanity challenged that belief. Their chaotic diet and willingness to embrace danger were not acts of carelessness, but a testament to their adaptability. It became clear that the Coalition's understanding of resilience had been woefully narrow. The reckoning began with the Coalition's re-examination of humanity's evolutionary path. Humans were the products of a brutal and unforgiving world. Their ancestors had faced predators far more powerful than themselves, endured harsh climates, and navigated the unpredictable forces of nature. Every challenge had shaped them into a species that thrived on uncertainty. They didn't just survive adversity, they grew stronger because of it. Nowhere was this more evident than in their relationship with food. For most species, eating was a simple transaction, ingesting precisely what the body needed to sustain itself. But for humans, it was a complex ritual that merged biology with culture, tradition, and creativity. Their willingness to experiment with fermentation, spice, toxins, and even live organisms was not recklessness, but a reflection of their resourcefulness. Where others saw poison, humans saw an opportunity to adapt. The Coalition's exonobiologists marveled at the implications. It wasn't just that humans had evolved to tolerate diverse and dangerous foods, it was that they actively sought out new challenges. They took substances that should harm them and transformed them into delicacies, bonding over the shared experience of pushing their limits. This mindset extended beyond food, revealing itself in their art, technology, and even their approach to interstellar exploration. Humanity's defining trait was their refusal to accept boundaries. But not everyone in the Coalition viewed this adaptability as a strength. To some, it was a threat. The Krellons, one of the Coalition's founding species, voiced their concerns in a heated debate. A species that defies nature so blatantly, they argued, is dangerous. If they cannot coexist with natural laws, how can they coexist with us? Others echoed this sentiment, viewing humanity's resilience as a destabilizing force that could upend the Coalition's carefully balanced order. Yet others, particularly the younger species within the Coalition, saw humanity as a beacon of possibility. The Raigen, inspired by humanity's boldness, declared that they had never encountered a species so willing to embrace the unknown. Perhaps, one Raigen scientist noted, "It is we who have been weak, hiding behind safety while humans evolved by challenging everything in their path." The debate intensified when the Coalition Council reviewed footage from the experiment. Seeing their own representatives incapacitated by foods humans ate casually was a humbling experience. The footage of humans laughing as they consumed spicy dishes or raw delicacies stood in stark contrast to the reactions of Coalition species who had required medical intervention after even minimal exposure. It was impossible to deny the evidence. Humanity's relationship with risk and resilience was unlike anything the Coalition had encountered. The reckoning reached its peak when a final report was presented. It concluded that humanity's dietary habits were a microcosm of their broader philosophy. Their survival was not built on eliminating danger but on confronting it head-on. They adapted to what others avoided, transforming threats into strengths. In doing so, they revealed a level of courage and creativity that the Coalition had long dismissed as irrelevant to progress. The Council adjourned with no clear consensus. Humanity had proven themselves extraordinary, but the question remained, did the Coalition accept a species so radically different from their own? Or would their fear of the unknown drive them to exclude a potential ally? As the human representatives awaited the final verdict, they remained unconcerned. For them, the Coalition's deliberations were just another challenge, another unknown to navigate. And if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was turning uncertainty into triumph. The Coalition's council chambers, a grand hall of crystalline walls and floating platforms, had never been so tense. The debate surrounding humanity had stretched on for days, with no resolution in sight. Representatives from dozens of species, each with their own perspectives and biases, argued passionately about what humanity's place in the galaxy should be. For some, humanity was an anomaly, a species whose reckless adaptability made them fascinating but dangerous. For others, they were a spark of inspiration, a reminder that strength was born not from avoidance but from perseverance. The final day of deliberations arrived. The chamber was packed with delegates, their bioluminescent skins, metallic shells, and shimmering scales reflecting the glow of the chamber's pulsating lights. At the center of it all stood the human representatives, their faces calm, their posture unyielding. They had made their case with clarity and conviction, and now they waited for a decision that would define their future in the stars. The council's leader, a towering Xiari with translucent wings that shimmered like glass, called the assembly to order. "We have heard all arguments," the Xiari intoned, their voice resonating in the chamber. "The time has come to decide. Shall humanity be granted full membership in the coalition, or shall we turn them away, deeming their ways too incompatible with our own?" The decision, however, was far from unanimous. The Krallans, rigid in their belief that humanity's unpredictable nature was a liability, made one final plea. "They are a species that thrives on chaos," the Krallans argued. "Their refusal to adhere to natural laws will destabilize the delicate balance we have cultivated over millennia." The Thriacs, who had been horrified by humanity's consumption of fermented and microbial-laden foods, voiced similar concerns. "They invite danger into their very bodies," one Thriax delegate said, their chitinous limbs clicking nervously. "How can we trust a species that treats risk as a virtue rather than a threat?" But then, a surprising voice rose in humanity's defense. The Raiken, a predatory species known for their pragmatism, spoke with uncharacteristic fervor. "We have spent centuries stagnating, hiding from the unknown, and clinging to traditions that no longer serve us," their leader declared. "Humanity reminds us of what it means to grow to evolve. They face the dangers we fear and emerge stronger. Is that not the essence of survival?" Other species began to chime in, sharing how humanity's courage and adaptability had inspired them. The Xiari, who valued harmony above all else, noted that humanity's diversity of thought and creativity could bring new perspectives to the coalition. Even the cautious Thriacs began to reconsider, acknowledging that humanity's resilience was not recklessness but an unparalleled ability to adapt and thrive in conditions others deemed impossible. As the debates continued, the human representatives stood firm. They did not apologize for their ways, nor did they attempt to downplay the qualities that made them unique. They had faced the coalition with the same spirit that defined their species, bold, unyielding, and unafraid of judgment. Finally, the Xiari leader called for the vote. Each delegate cast their decision, their votes recorded in a symphony of light and sound that filled the chamber. When the results were tallied, the room fell silent. The Xiari leader rose, their translucent wings catching the light as they spoke. "By the will of this council, humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition." The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and murmurs. For the first time in centuries, the coalition had embraced a species so radically different from their own. Humanity, with all their chaos, resilience, and defiance of convention, was now part of a galactic community that had once doubted their worth. The human representatives stood, their expressions a mix of pride and determination. They understood the magnitude of this moment not just for humanity but for the coalition as a whole. This was more than acceptance. It was a recognition that the universe thrived not on uniformity but on diversity. Humanity's strength lay in their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to find opportunity in adversity. As the session adjourned, the coalition's leader offered a final reflection. "Humanity has reminded us that survival is not just about preserving what is safe and known. It is about embracing the unknown and finding strength in it. In them we see a future that is brighter, bolder, and unafraid." For humanity, this was only the beginning. Their place in the coalition would not be without challenges, but they welcomed them with open arms. They knew that their resilience, creativity, and unyielding spirit would carry them forward. As the human delegation left the council chamber, they were greeted by a sight that filled them with hope. Coalition species of every kind, watching them with newfound respect and curiosity. Humanity had not just been accepted, they had begun to inspire. And so, humanity's journey among the stars continued, a testament to the power of adaptability and the courage to defy expectations. Where others saw chaos, humanity saw possibility, and in their willingness to embrace the unthinkable, they had found their place in the universe. Thanks for watching this episode of Starlight Sci-Fi. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow sci-fi enthusiasts. Remember, humanity's greatest strength lies in our ability to adapt and sometimes to eat the unthinkable. See you next time.